Hello, I'm Scott. Welcome to the 8th video in our table modelling series. So far what we've done in this is we've spawned in a cube, we've beveled off the corners on the cube to give it this curvature, we've sorted out the n-gons that appeared from that, we've beveled the edge corners on that cube, we then spawned in a torus, reduced its geometry right down, we've beveled the inside and outside corners on that, we've beveled the edges on it too, we've combined it with our cube and rebuilt the geometry on the underside of the tabletop here. We've then spawned in a cube for a table leg, we've deleted unnecessary faces from it and beveled the rest, and we've duplicated it 4 times equidistantly around the table's frame, and then we've combined that with the rest of the object. Following that, we've moved on to the UVs. We've used planar maps for the top and the bottom, and then the underside of the torus here and the underside of the table inside that, and we use cylindrical maps to build out these edge loops that run round. We've then cut and stitched those edge loops back onto the rest of our UV map to give us a bit of a more reduced shell count and a slightly easier to navigate UV map for when texturing comes later. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to cut up this UV strip that we've got here that runs around the inside of this torus, and we're going to socket that back onto the underside of the table here. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're just going to start by using our edge select by holding right click and letting go on edge, and we're just going to click here and we're going to hit stitch, and that's going to glue these two together. Before we go further, I'm just going to remember and say, if you're ever wondering what the hotkeys I'm using are, or if you miss any of the hotkeys, in this series and in the previous series on my channel of modelling a barrel, you can find all the hotkeys I use in the description. So if you're ever wondering what the context for using the hotkey is, the buttons for it, the situation in which it has to be used, or what it does, you can find all those details in the video description on my channel for each video as I go. So getting back into it, what we're going to do is we're going to start cutting this strip up now. So we're going to hold right click, we're going to go to edge again, and we're going to want to keep these the same distance apart as we go around for how many faces are on each side. So this is split by 2 on the corner, so we're going to have one edge hanging off on each side. So we're going to double click this edge here, we're just going to hit cut. It's going to split this up here. So we're going to go to edge again, click this one here, and stitch together. And we're just going to cut this little one off here. And we're just going to take these 2 edges here on the side of that. We've got to individually select these. We can't just double click like we were doing before, because this is a perimeter edge. So if we double click, it will give us everything on the way around. So we just want these 2, and we want to hit cut. We want to hit stitch together. That's going to join them back onto the other end. We're going to double click these 2 here and cut these, and then we're just going to stitch this one here, and we're going to double click here and cut, and then we're going to click this big long one and stitch together as well. So it's giving us this nice uniformness to what we're doing. We're going to hover over our right click radial menu and we'll hold down right, and we're going to go over UV, and we're just going to sort out this little uneven edging on some of these because of the bevel. So if we drag a selection box with left click, we can use these align and snap tools in the side menu here, and these are going to push all the selected UVs in line with the highest or the lowest or the furthest left or the furthest right, or give us equal distances between. So we're going to try and maximize a little bit of UV space here by pushing these ones up, and we don't want to move this corner point, so we want to bring these other 2 in line with it by bringing them down. We're going to repeat that, just going around the mesh. We're just going to take these ones and push them up and bring out the hanging off ones down, and then we're going to repeat that by pushing these to the right and bringing these in line with the left. We're going to come over to the other side now and bring these ones, I've not selected them, we're going to bring these ones in line with the corner piece and push these ones out. Now we want to make sure as we're doing this we don't accidentally select other UVs, because we'll have to undo things and we can risk messing things up in the UV map. Nothing unfixable, but it's just a little bit of back and forth if you do accidentally move a UV the wrong place. So we're just going to be careful as we do this that we don't accidentally pick out any of the wrong ones, and we're just going to sort out all the rest as we go to just make it nice and even for when we come to texture later. So there we go, that's that nice and even. The next thing we've got to do now in our UV process is, now that we've got the torus done and the tabletop done, we just want to do the legs now. So to do that, we're going to hold right click, we're going to go to face select, we're going to click one face on the table leg, I'm going to double click the rest, we're going to catch that top bevel as well. So we're just going to get in here, we're going to double click on the adjacent one. So we're going to select one holding shift, double click the next, and that will give us the loop. We're not going to do the bottom though, because the bottom's going to come out weird if we do that, because it has tries involved. So we're going to do something different for the bottom. But we're just going to do a create cylindrical, and we're going to leave that for now, because we're just going to do each leg together so that we can scale them all the exact same and they'll all have the identical UVs. So we're going to select one, double click the adjacent again, create cylindrical. I'm going to come around here, we're going to pick one out, double click the next while holding shift still, again hold shift down and click one, double click the next and cylindrical, and the final one we're going to click, hold shift and double click the next, click one, double click the next and click cylindrical. Now all four of these cylindrical UV maps are over the top of each other, which means that if we use UV shell select and we just draw a box over, we're going to get all four table legs selected at once, and we don't have to individually scale these to try and get the density right on them. So if we hit R, we can see these are stretched up and down the way, so we want to give them more UV space vertically by scaling them up like so. And we just want to check that these are square, so maybe a little bit more. And now we just want the squares on here to match the density on here, so we need to scale these in both directions to bring these up a little bit more, probably like so. So that's probably about right now. So we can just move these over, and then one by one we can just pull these out like so, just by using click and the move tool with W, and we can just move them out like that. Now for the undersides, because these have tries involved, they're not going to cylindrically unwrap very nice. So we want to go into face select, I'm going to hit Q to get rid of this little move tool, and I'm going to use shift, and I'm just going to individually pick out each of these faces like so, not missing any. I'm going to come over here, I'm going to do the same on each table foot. I'm just going to get them all selected. On all four, because we're going to do a planar map on these again using the y-axis like we've done in previous videos, and then we're going to stitch these back onto the other table legs. So last one here. If you accidentally select a face, just hover over it and then it's green, click on it while you're holding shift and that'll deselect it for you. So now that we've done that, we'll just double check that we've got all the faces on each one. We've not missed any. And we're going to do create. We're going to go to planar, and if you missed the last videos, if you hit this little square expansion box, you just want to make sure Y is ticked for this, because the face is on the Y axis, it's pointing up and down the way, so we want to project on the Y axis. We're going to hit that, and we're going to see that these are a bit distorted, and they're all appearing in red, which means that these are back to front. Because they're not facing up the way, the projection is displaying the UVs in reverse. So we want to draw a selection box and select them all. We want to hit modify, and we want to hit flip, and that's going to make them blue again when we've got this little 3 green squares ticked and an L here. If we don't have that on, we just see the UV seams. If we have this on, we can troubleshoot as we go, and we can make sure that everything's the right way around. So I'm going to hit W, and I'm going to move these over so that I can see what I'm doing a bit better without this checker in the background. Now, they're slightly too thin up in, like, laterally they're too thin, so we need to sort that out. And we can't see what's going on with the UVs because they're too small. So to start with, we're just going to scale them up in both directions until we can see the cubes on them, like so. Now they're going to appear like this because we're scaling all four, so they're scaling apart, but that's okay. We don't want to select all four, however, when we individually scale them, otherwise they're going to scale. No, sorry, we don't want to individually select them, or they're all going to be different scales. We want to keep them all in one selection. If we individually scale one and then the next, they're not going to be exactly the same. So we want to have all four selected like so, and then we want to scale them all until the squares on here aren't distorted anymore, like so. Now that we've done that, we can just make sure that the scale on these matches the squares on the density above, which it roughly does. So we can now stitch these back on. So we can use edge select, and we can pick out the first edge on the base of each of our cylindrical unwraps, and we can just hit stitch together, and that's just going to seal these back into one UV shell like so. So we've kind of got this down to as few UV shells as we possibly can, and all the density is the same across the whole model. So what we want to do now is we want to right click, we want to hover over UV shell, and we want to draw a big selection box that picks out all of our UV shells. Now we need to get all of these down into this 1 by 1 UV square here. So rather than scaling them and trying to do that, we're just going to use a tool for it. So we're going to go to modify in our UV editor, and we're going to hover over layout, and we're going to click on the little expansion box here. Now what this is going to do is, this is going to compress all these UVs. It's going to apply an even scale to all of them to make them fit. But what we need is, we need to increase the shell padding value down here. So what shell padding is how many pixels is going to be between each UV shell on the map. We don't want the shells touching each other, because if we have anti-aliasing on when we're texturing, it's going to pick up color from one texture area on the UV, and it's going to bleed that color into the next UV shell. So we want a pad that's going to place a gap between them. So we're going to hit 20 on that when this is ticked on pixels, and that's going to give us a 20 pixel gap. And we just want to increase our texture map size to 2048 as well. If we hit layout UVs now, you're going to see that that has pushed all of them down into our UV map here, where they're all fitting in nicely. Now the only thing is, it's placed one table leg up here and the other three down inside. So we can try and move some of these around, and if it will fit, we're just going to shift these up so that we can keep our table legs together inside our UV space. So if we just move these up like so, and we just give them a bit more room by moving them up, and we spread them out a little bit more, we can keep this nice and organized. The layout tool won't account for if you want things that are similar next to each other, so you sometimes have to just do a little bit of moving around after, but for the most part it's going to keep things in a pretty organized way. So now that we've done that, we can save off our UV map, but first we're just going to troubleshoot it. So we know that everything is flipped the right way round, so if we tick that off, and now we click this little L that's half white and half green, we can just check for distortion on our UVs. So if we click this, we want everything to be white or a very light blue like in here. That means that none of our faces are being stretched too badly on their UV, and that means that nothing's going to be stretched on our texture. In the next video, we'll cover how to do the export settings on the model, how to export your UV map as a PNG, and a few things that you're going to want to do before exporting, just to future-proof your models. So thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.